I'm going to call this study session to order. If you would, follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance and an invocation from Marshall.
Bow your heads with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, the opportunity to gather together as community members. Thank you so much for just the spirit that's in our community right now. These halls are adorned with Christmas decorations, recognizing the reason for the season, but also just coming off of a tremendously successful Veterans Day, where we honored those who sacrificed for us, and we couldn't do any of that without you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Marshall. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Lucas, Denham, Cooper,
Here.
Milton,
Here.
Alden, LeBlanc, Schultz.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll get an update on the bidding process for Historic Downtown Streetscape Phase 4. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. We're excited today to present the final segment of downtown Branson plan development. And we were here a few short 8 months ago, and I'm super thankful for Great River Engineering and all the staff at City Hall for working hard. I know they're ready to be off on Fridays because somehow we always did Friday meetings till 6 o'clock. So we're super excited to present our findings today. It is out to bid, so as my boss says, the cake's in the oven, and we're super excited about that. So our bidding will come back shortly. I'm going to give a brief introduction, and then Todd Chandler from Great River Engineering is going to pick up from there. Well, when we worked on this plan, we made sure to look back and remember that there's a historic significance to downtown. Yesterday was a great example of lots of people coming up and talking about memories of all the different times and businesses that were in downtown Branson, and then to celebrate the Veterans Day Parade. We made sure that we thought about the unique shops and restaurants, the live entertainment that's available, the cultural events, the true scenic beauty of downtown Branson, and the family-friendly activities. We also took a deep, deep dive into accessibility on this. We went after water lines, streets, sidewalks, all the wayfinding that's down there, and something special with some new street lighting that's going to basically foster a better environment for the future. There's a little bit of timeline that you should remember seeing not too long ago. Again, we are super grateful for everybody that was involved from all the staffs, and we followed this to a T. So as you can see, as you go down through here in a few short 8 months, we took a concept to there, and we thank the Board of Aldermen and the mayor for making the funds available to do this project. And so we're right online to get started in January with a successful bidding. Major milestones that we've completed. So survey is 100%. Preliminary plans is when we came and presented to you before. 100% plans are done. The final really editing and making sure everything that's there. We had an addendum today, and we had our open bidders meeting today for any questions that were there. And a good sign was that there weren't a whole lot of questions, so that means we put out a solid plan going forward. With that being said, thank you again for the opportunity to lead this group and lead a great project with Todd, and I'll give it over to Todd.
Hello, Todd.
Thank you. Todd Chandler with Great River Engineering. Got to adjust this a little bit. I'm a little shorter than Michael, so thank you, Michael, for the good introduction as well. All right, so if you look up at the screen, you can kind of see where Branson was at in the past downtown. This is a view that Cheryl Harrison actually tracked down. You'll notice the downtown actually at one point did have string lights. The cars are a little bit more up to date now, but I'm guessing that was probably late 50s, early 60s, and that was been a kind of a driving theme, kind of to remember to keep the past, the connection to the past with our current design. You'll see presently, looking at Main Street, there's some of the congestion. Obviously, there's a lot of vehicular traffic as well as pedestrian traffic too. So we've balanced all these ideas in the design, as well as meeting with property owners. The issues that we identified really from the get-go, an aging infrastructure downtown, concrete pavement that's, asphalt pavement that's beyond its useful life, ADA accessibility into buildings, parking is always a concern downtown. How do we make more parking? Stormwater concerns, some of the recent heavy rain events have caused some water intrusion. So increasing the number of inlets to catch that water, put it underground. Sidewalk width, making sure we're meeting ADA accessibility while not minimizing any losses to parking. Furnishings, providing benches, trash cans, et cetera, in isolated areas, in areas where it makes sense with business owners, where it's complementary for what they're doing every day. Lighting, as new attractions come into downtown, existing shops, extended hours, lighting's a critical component of that. We didn't want to forget the memorial plaques as well. So if you go downtown, you'll see the memorial plaques around all the street lights. So we've got some ideas how we've incorporated that in the plans that we'll show you. Roadway width. One of the things we were going to initially look at was optimizing the lane widths. After meeting with several of the property owners, we quickly realized absolutely do not touch the lane widths. We need every inch we can get. So we basically made adjustments from there and left the lane widths at the current configuration as what's out there once our design is complete. Lack of gateway signage. That was an item that was added after our project started on the design side. So we incorporated foundations as well as a bid alternate for the top portion of the gateway signage. So we'll show a picture of that as well. And then one of the critical items that we identified early on was access to business during construction to make sure that we're minimizing impacts. We know construction is going to be chaotic. We're trying to minimize that. We feel that we came up with a really good plan of how to phase construction to maintain access for both vehicles and pedestrians through the majority of construction. There are some times where we will have some blockages for the intersection improvements at Main and Commercial, and then Sycamore and Commercial as well. But we've also made it very difficult for contractors to extend the duration of those closures through liquidated damages. So you'll see that in our contract as well. The solutions, obviously this project is replacing all infrastructure from face of building to face of building between, on Main Street between Veterans and Sycamore. We will replace all paved surfaces. This includes roadway and sidewalks, replace the water line within the right-of-way as well as replace any of the water services, as we've been working with the City of Branson Utilities Department. As far as parking, the great thing I have is that we actually added 2 parking spaces downtown. So that was a challenge to get that done, but we've listened to business owners and tried to make changes where we could, because we didn't want to lose any parking spaces, and that was one of the key items that we heard from every one of our meetings with property owners. Stormwater, you'll see we've added new storm sewer, curb inlets, much more frequent than what's out there now. You'll have multiple curb inlets. Some of them are tripled up, so there'll be 3 curb inlets to handle a 100-year event. So we designed, typically in this area, a lot of the stormwater is designed for 25, maybe 50-year events, but working with Michael and staff, we have designed it for a 100-year event. Now, hopefully we don't see a 100-year event, but that is a strong likelihood that it will happen, just as we saw this summer in Hollister, where they've got, I think, 8 inches in a little over an hour and a half. So we wanted to make sure that we design accordingly. As far as ADA accessibility, we've provided ADA access on both sides of downtown, which is no easy feat considering the existing grades. And this is ADA access to all public businesses, or within the public right-of-way to all businesses. Sidewalk width, we have not reduced the sidewalk width in any location. Furnishing, we've incorporated, working with property owners, new benches, trash cans, and cigarette bins. We have gone away from recycling bins as well, because those are not being used. They're actually being used as doubling up trash bins. So we've listened to business owners, provided those trash cans in strategic locations. Memorial plaques, we've accommodated this in the design via placement in walls and a potential bid alternate that I'll show you shortly. Roadway width, no reduction in width of the existing roadway, so I think that will make everybody happy. As far as lack of gateway signage, we proposed gateway signage just east of the intersection of Main and Commercial, so we'll show what that looks like. And then access to business during construction, phased traffic control plans for maintaining access for both pedestrians and vehicles during construction. There's $5,200 per day liquidated damages for milestone work, which would be the construction of the Main and Sycamore and Main and Commercial intersections. It basically limits the closure of those intersections for 14 days. So contractor has 2 weeks to get in there, replace the pavers at Main Street and replace it with concrete and open back up to traffic. So that's a very aggressive schedule. As far as the liquidated damages, we looked at the basically the MoDOT criteria for setting the liquidated damages, and we balanced that with the delays that would cost, typical delay for the owners of these businesses, and came up with a number we felt comfortable. One thing that should be noted is this is about 10 times what the liquidated damages were in phase one. And that is really to make sure that contractors know the importance and the value of getting this done in a timely manner. So now we get into some of the fun slides. So this is kind of showing the future. This is taking our design. I could bore you all with a 100-sheet plan set. I decided not to do that, and we're going to just highlight a few renderings showing kind of some of the improvements. So if you look here, you'll be familiar with this business along Main Street Flea Market. This is one of the very difficult areas for grade and trying to make ADA accommodations. So we were able to incorporate the kind of a combined staircase and landing area to access the business, as well as creating the place for memorial plaques as well. And you'll see the next slide too shows what that looks like at night. We looked at several different ideas for what to do with the memorial plaques, and we kept falling back to this one as something that's easily seen. It's a lot easier to see even from your car. You can see this standing up, you can see it sitting down. People aren't walking over these, because right now people are walking on the memorial plaques where they're basically in front of some of the pedestrian lights. This is also a location up closer to veterans. And so you'll see at night what this looks like. It has a kind of a tape light. I think that's the appropriate terminology. It's kind of like a string light, although it's a tape light that sits underneath the lip of the retaining wall and then provides light so you can easily see these monuments, the memorial plaques at night. And some of this, keep in mind, these are renderings. We're just showing it for illustrative purposes only. Construction, once that occurs, it may look a little different. The handrail looks a little different. I can tell you that already. It's a different type of handrail. But I really wanted to show you kind of what it looks like with the memorial plaques incorporated, as well as trying to address some of the ADA constraints that we had. This is the gateway. This was kind of added to our contract after we were engaged, and the mayor came up with had a great drawing. I should have put that in the presentation.
I saved a couple $100,000 on designing this sign. One napkin.
Yeah, it was a great drawing. I apologize I didn't give you credit for that, but that was our inspiration for the project, and a lot of these components were pulled from the master plan too, back in 2015. So we haven't gone away from the master plan. This is really, it parallels the signage that was put out there for the parking garage sign that was installed as part of segment 3, which Wayne was involved with. So very similar. The scale of the lanterns is larger. it's really just a neat deal. One of the lights, actually two of the lights, we had to rotate in order to have all the lights be in correct alignment. But this is kind of looking down. If you were looking towards the landing, looking to the east, obviously the grade's it's showing up a little flatter than what it really is. But that's why I put that note at the bottom that says for illustrative purposes only. So, and I think a lot of you, this is probably the first time you've seen this, so it's good to see a lot of people smiling, and I think it's a great addition. It's going to be really cool for downtown. And you will see historic downtown Branson on both sides of the sign, because that is a question that we've gotten, but it's definitely planned to be on both sides. This is the signage with kind of incorporating the string lights. These are strung from an aircraft cable, so they're very heavy-duty string lights. I don't think these aren't something like residential grade that you buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. These are heavy-duty lights. We tried to find one of the least amount of maintenance products out there. We actually have a bid alternate to do them as color changing if the prices come in hopefully lower than what the budget is. The color changing lights would give the effect of, you could change them during Christmas, but there is a big cost associated with that. So that's why we're trying to be smart just to see what that option is. And it's something that can always be, if the city can't do it now, they'll at least know what the costs are in current dollars, and they will have that flexibility to do that over time as well, if it can't be incorporated with this project. And that's something Michael's very adamant about. That's an emerging technology, and every year that goes by, the technology gets better and better on color changing, because we don't want to put something that's cheap that looks like you'd put in your kid's basement, or like in their bedroom, because my kids have tape lights and you can change colors, but you do not want them for a commercial application. So there are some products out there, but right now it's just like big screen TVs. If you wait long enough, the price comes down. It makes it affordable for everybody. So here's another rendering looking towards the east, towards the landing. One thing I will note on this too is you'll see the decorative concrete. So there's a bid alternate option for the B logo, as well as the stamped and integral color concrete. If you were out there today, you'd see brick pavers, and those pavers, because of all the utilities underneath, are very warped. So that's a concern that all the business owners have presented to us when we were meeting in one-on-one meetings. So the integral color concrete is a good solution where you still get the aesthetic, but you get the long-term, that's 9 inches of concrete. That's very thick concrete, so it'll hold up for many, many years to come. As far as financials, this is the fun part of it. One of our big goals was to keep this project within a determined set budget, including all project costs. So that's not just what it costs the contractors to build the project. That's the cost of me being up here presenting, working with the city. That's the cost of the city providing some of the items, because that's been one thing we've worked strategically with the city, because there's advantages for the city to provide some of those items because they have more control of the items, as well as some of the tax implications. They can order these materials tax-free, and so that can save upwards of 10% sometimes. So that's a huge cost savings. So like the lighting, the benches, the trash cans. So working with the city to figure out what items they can be most effective, where you get the most bang for your buck. And they also leverage state contracts for the benches, the trash cans, and the cigarette bins. Unfortunately, the lights are not part of the state contract, that's where they have set established pricing that's spread out across the entire state, offering communities the flexibility of getting that at a better price while still getting a good product. The overall project cost, including the all-in cost, so that's all the hard and soft cost, was $5,090,000. That was set at the beginning of our contract. Our contract to date is actually less than what it was when we got contracted. We kind of changed our scope, and we got rid of the improvements to the Albury restroom. because the restroom has recently been improved, and we talked with business owners, and they would rather see the money spent on Main Street, getting as many enhancements as possible. That allowed us to add the gateway design in as well, that the mayor wanted to see and the rest of the city staff agreed with. So we've adhered to that. We've worked with the city on our budget. There are some bid alternates that we talked about earlier. The additive for stamped concrete, this was estimated from our third-party reviewer to be about approximately $80,000. That's at Main Street and commercial. The RGB lighting, that's an optional bid alternate as well. And that came in about $120,000 based on our third-party cost estimate. And to summarize what was left over after you subtract all that, you basically have, let's see, oh, that didn't have the updated construction cost. You about have $4 million left over for construction. And that includes the owner-furnished items with, contingency. That would be the street lights, the trash cans, the benches, the cigarette bins. Basically, what we have for that is about $651,000 if the city doesn't end up doing the bid alternates. If they do select the bid alternates, we typically would see about a $450,000 construction contingency. And that accounts for bids coming in about $3.9 to $4 million. And I apologize, that slide wasn't updated, so. Oh, yeah. We're currently, as Michael said earlier, we're currently bidding the project, so we don't know exactly what the bid will be yet. We're hoping that it'll be $4 million. In that, the one thing that's hard to bid the project is the time frame, because we have a very accelerated time frame where we're going full construction starting in January, ending in May. And one thing nobody in this room can control is Mother Nature and the weather. Hopefully, we can all pray for a mild winter for more ways than one. Everything is trending to be delivered within budget and completed on time. That's the biggest takeaway from these items. As Michael mentioned earlier, we've really fast-tracked this project. To get a project like this designed, get input from the public, as well as get it bid and built in a short period of time 8 months is pretty aggressive for any public project. Typically, you like to see at least 12 months, so we've worked with the city staff. Michael and I talk all the time. It's been great. Without that relationship, this project doesn't happen that quickly because we've wanted to get this to where it's ready to bid, it's on the street. That way it can be awarded in the month of December and construction begins in January. With the least amount of impact to all the business owners. One thing, we've incorporated all the comments that we received. I believe we got most of them from the first public meeting. Wayne, if you haven't heard about the texting service, Wayne Glenn right there, check with him because he can provide you access to a texting service that'll provide updates during construction. So that way all of our business owners know exactly what's going on, how they're going to be impacted. And I'm sure Wayne will be, going out there from time to time also providing updates to business owners as well. And you'll see him out on the job site, I'm sure, more than probably multiple times daily. So we've been coordinating with utility companies. There really wasn't many utility impacts on this project, fortunately. And then also MoDOT as well, because MoDOT is responsible for maintaining the traffic signal at Veterans. We've been having one-on-one meetings with all the property owners, sometimes multiple one-on-one meetings to make sure their voices are being heard. We're incorporating the changes they'd like to see, working, kind of balancing that between city staff and the business owners as well, being mindful of taxpayer dollars. We also, as Michael mentioned earlier, we were done with our final design. The project is in its bidding phase right now. Bids will be submitted November 26th, so right before Thanksgiving. So that way contractors can enjoy having Thanksgiving and not having to stress about coming back the next week and submitting a bid. So we've thought about that as well. We had a pre-bid meeting today. for contractors to, it wasn't a mandatory pre-bid meeting, so contractors had the option of attending. We did not receive many questions, so that's a good thing. It means the documents are clear. We will be submitting an addendum later this week with some housekeeping cleanup on the drawings and the contract documents as well as adding the design for the upper portion of the gateway. Because right now we just show the foundation of the gateway. Now we're going to have the upper structure as well to provide enough information for the contractors to bid. And then if all goes according to plan and we identify who the low bidder is on the project, notice to proceed would be given right after the first of the year on January 6th, and it'd be full speed from there. And just kind of in summary, some of this information was provided back at the initial public meeting. We haven't gone away from this. You'll see the Ozark Giraffe Stone seat walls. We've got this in a couple locations along Main Street. Those will have a light, tape light underneath. So they'll be similar to the Highway 76 project where they've got string lighting underneath. You won't be able to see the lights, but you'll see the impact of the lights on the surface itself. We will be doing, instead of the stamped concrete crosswalks, we're actually using the brick pavers on the crosswalks because that has been really good on the other segment. That's the brick pavers. They haven't had any issues. We're actually able to reuse some of the pavers from the intersection of Main Street and Commercial in the brick pavers, so there's some reuse there. Because unfortunately the brick pavers in the middle didn't hold up because of the settlement in the trench. So that's where we're able to reuse some of that material for crosswalks. And then you'll see the brick paver utility corridor. This is a 2.5-foot strip that'll be along the sidewalks as well. You'll see the meter pits for the City of Branson water meters out there. Provides access in case we ever have to get back in there for street lighting, irrigation, access to the water meters, any utilities. Furnishings, similar to the benches that are out there already. You'll see the trash cans too. You won't see any of the recycle bins with the blue lids. It'll all be trash cans with the black lids. Handicap parking signage, street name signage, that's all derived from the master plan, and we're continuing that theme on this project as well. And then as we touched on earlier, the string lights, as well as accent lighting underneath the seat walls and also underneath the memorial plaque walls at some of the ADA locations. And then we've worked with Cindy as far as she recently, I think, is it Opie's that did the, yeah, recently engaged Opie's to kind of redo some of the landscaping downtown. So we've been coordinating with them to make sure what we're showing is complementary to what Opie's has done out there and try to reuse as much as possible from the landscaping side. That's it. I appreciate everybody's time. I guess with that, willing to open it up for questions and answer.
And we also brought in one of the street lights that's outside the door out there with a little sample of what's there, so you can actually see what we're talking about and proposing. We thank you for all your time and happy to answer any questions. I know we have other items this evening.
Michael and Todd, first thing I want to say is thank you so much for listening to our downtown businesses, right? I know that takes a lot of time to do that and listening and discussing. So thank you for that. The aging infrastructure, I know in phases 1 through 3 downtown, there were surprises of what was found underground. Todd, you're comfortable with what to expect when you start digging up our old utilities?
Yeah, as much as I can be. I mean, it goes back to probably the 50s and 60s that some of that's been covered. So I'm sure we'll probably hit some stuff out there, and we'll just, as they come up, Michael and I will work together like we have been and address those issues as they come up. But as far as like main utilities or anything like that, we don't anticipate any issues with that.
Okay. Chris Bohink is here. What do you think the appetite would be, Chris? I know you can't speak for the board, What do you think the appetite of the downtown CID would be within your budget? I know you have monies allocated for signage, that we could get some of that money to apply towards our signage, because that wasn't in our original plans.
I don't think we had money allocated for signage, but we had money allocated for the streetlights,
Oh,
so that you could afford to have the crisscross lights across Main Street.
oh, good.
Because
Okay,
that was a substantial one that probably wouldn't be able to happen without a little help.
very
But I
nice.
know my board would be more than happy to look at other things like signage. They're very open to working with you.
Well, and thank you. These improvements obviously are going to make a difference with the appearance of our historic downtown.
I'd love to see those continue, those lights continue through Commercial Street and everywhere it had been done through the years, as, you know, we can partner.
Let's work together on that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Any aldermen have any comments, questions? Yep, Marshall?
Todd, thank you so much for meeting with Chris and I when we talked about the memorial plaques. I think you guys have come up with a great idea about that. You know, that means a lot to me, not just because my grandpa has one of those plaques, but it represents a certain period of time in Branson and some of the founders, and I think it's great that, my question is, does that include some of the ones that we have in storage, your plan?
Yes, it'd be storage ones as well as any future memorial plaques too. We'll be able to make some enhancements on that side. Yep.
I had a question, and I know I don't want to get into nitpicking of design and stuff, but I just wanted to ask, on the financials, was I correct that it was about 115,000 more for the RGB versus the white?
Yeah, I think it was like 119,000, but close enough. Yep. That's
know-
an increase of going with the colored lights
Yeah.
versus, yep.
If you do RGB versus,
Yeah, it's something to do with the controllers.
well,
and-
oh, sure, absolutely, yeah. I
yep,
mean, I have them all over my building, so, I mean, that's where all the money is the controllers and stuff.
Correct.
But,
We hope it's less than that. I mean, that's just coming from a third-party estimator.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're able to source it and it's a little.
do you
more
know how
affordable.
many feet you have designed with those? I'm just,
I think it's about 2,000 adding on. Does that sound right? Yeah, I think it's about 2,000 roughly.
and, I mean, I'm only asking because what is the cost for the white? Do you know what the cost is? I'm only asking that because I'm wondering if there's another option that you might could get the RGB for a whole lot less. Are these the old-fashioned bulbs hanging? Is that what they
So-
are?
So, right, and the base bid is just regular bulbs.
Yeah.
Plain and simple,
Yeah.
done, something that's reliable, that works, that, not necessarily incandescent, but LED, and then the step up is to go to color changing.
Yeah. And I know that's part of the look is the old bulb look, but there might be some, it might be worth investigating the pixel, you know, kind of like I have on my building, which are already LED.
Yeah.
And it's still, they're all strung together. You wouldn't have the old bulb. Anyhow, I'll talk to you later about
Yeah.
it. But there's,
One thing we did look at is,
for significantly less than
Sure.
what you're looking at.
we looked at, different options out there, mainly my electrical engineer. So hopefully he doesn't, I know just enough to be dangerous
Yeah.
on this side of it, Clay. But part of it is you can only daisy chain so many of these together. There's actually a sister cable with it that is a structural cable, because you can only hang like unsupported like 20 feet spans. And our span lengths are going over 100 feet on these, so we have to have like a heavy-duty cable that goes, and these lights actually bracket onto that cable in addition to their cable. So it limits what options we have because we have all those unsupported links where we don't have intermediate supports. But yeah, I'd definitely be open
Well,
to chatting with you on that.
Man, what an effect to have the color change at Christmas and
Oh, yeah.
reds and greens, and Veterans Week, it's red, white, and blue. I mean, and there might be a way to do that for a lot
Sure.
cheaper with the same effect.
Okay.
I think that was my only.
Yeah, great comment.
Oh, also on the arch, was that just the LED can lights, historic Branson? What was that?
It's like a backlit channel light.
Okay.
But there will be like the can lights down on the foundation portion of it. But up on the top, it's going to be backlit letters, so it'll be really, really
Okay.
impressive in the evenings. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Great questions.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Yeah, first I want to say thanks, Todd and Michael, for working with the businesses. I heard a lot of good comments from people that you guys have been engaged and receptive and came up with ideas based on that feedback, so thanks very much. I know we're short on time, so my only real question right now is, you described the need to close up the 2 cross streets in the 14-day period. Can you just generally describe the progress of the construction as you see it now? Where will it start and how does it move along? And how do you deal with when you're actually in front of a business and you've got the sidewalk ripped out and whatever, how you're dealing with letting patrons into that business?
Sure, in front of the businesses, we, just like in the other sections, they provide rubberized mats that get them there. The 14 days is kind of a significant thing. It's intersection improvements, and since we are putting back 100% concrete versus asphalt, that those times are there. And basically, we spent more time developing the actual routes to go around all this to make this work, that it should be super successful. Of course, there's always changes, but we have it split up right now. It's one side of the lane starting towards Dick 5 and Dime side, then going across the street, then going down, then going across. So it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the 2 intersections are by themselves with the $5,200 a day push to get it. We'll also, 137 days in the contract, at day 138, it's $5,200. So we spent a lot of time, Todd and I did, we looked at a lot of MoDOT stuff where I came from and made sure it's a fair shake to make sure that people are done. With that being said, if we get a bunch of 16-degree weather, there may be a little bit of delay. But we hope by spring break, those main sections of the roadway are back and open. I know it can be done. I know an intersection can be done in 5 days if it really needs to be.
So I know it's disruptive to the businesses, but is your general sense when you convey that to them, are they satisfied or understanding of that project plan, or what would you say?
I think so. I mean, they understand, like, the business owners understand that construction's going to be impactful, but I think the biggest part of it is just the messaging that's out there, that downtown is going to remain open for business throughout duration of construction, and really getting that message out onto the different media outlets, as well as the text messaging system that the city has put together. And, you know, Wayne getting out there with every meeting that we had, he was given cards with how to download the app for all the notifications. So I think we're trying to do everything we can in our power to minimize those disruptions, knowing that there will be some disruptions, but for the most part, you know, any contractor that I've worked with is going to be willing to work with the property owners too. Unfortunately, we don't have that contractor on board yet, but that's something that the message will be delivered to that contractor as well too. So,
Great, thank you.
Great question.
Anybody else? I know we're running short of time. Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Steve, I was kind of anticipating you would have some input.
Mayor, members of the board, Steve Hartley, Dix 5 and 10. We have had some great meetings with Todd, with Michael and their team, and they have been very open and willing to listen to us, and I think they have our best interest at heart, so I appreciate you guys. It sounds like the Albury bathroom is not going to happen, nothing happening there. There is underground issues there, so we'd very much like to talk to you guys about our sewage line and theirs meet. We had issues over the weekend, so we'd like to try to, I think there's some ways that we can work on that don't tear like we talked about. Anyway, very much like to work on that. The bathroom is so superior to what it was before, and very functional now, and maybe down the road some other things we've talked about, but the underneath the alleyway, would like to just make sure we can continue talking and have some dialogue on that, Michael. We talked about, Alderman Schultz brought up the way this is going to transpire, and Todd mentioned about the way to get around that is make sure that news is out that downtown is open, and we've talked to both Todd and Michael and their team about making sure there's great signage directing parking to the Arbery lot. It's not a busy time of the year, and if we can let people know and make sure that as these guys have said they're going to do, make sure there's adequate detoured signage, because since the Business 65 intersection is not going to be shut down, then they can just make that left and get to the Arbery lot. That would be very beneficial to us that are still open. That parking is very adequate that time of year, so thank you so much for proceeding with that. I noticed it said notice to proceed January 6th. Is that also mean start date, hopefully? Okay, great. We had talked about the bump outs on phases 1 through 3, possibly bringing those in a little bit so that the turn radius is a little bit, it's hard if you've got a bigger car to make a turn as you go south down Commercial because of the bump outs. And I know we're trying to make sure that the crossing is not a long a walk between the bump outs, but I think we talked to the guys about really trying to make sure that bump outs aren't as large so that the turns can be made, and many larger cars out there now, and I think I see Alderman Cooper shaking his head that it's hard to make a turn sometimes, and so we'd like to make sure that we're addressing that, yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, let's be clear on that. Todd, drawings are done, right? So are we accommodating what Steve's asking for?
That's more on phases 1 and 3, 1, 2, and 3 phases that have been completed. We're basically dealing with a straight stretch of Main Street, so we don't necessarily have that scenario for turning
So that would
radius.
be, Michael, that would be a separate contract, separate work? Okay.
That's a valid point, though.
Yeah, it's very valid.
The parking issue has been brought up many times, how there's a definite challenge downtown, but then we've got a great opportunity with the Pacific Street parking garage just one block down that many people aren't aware of. A great opportunity many times a year it is maybe 15% filled. So I think a great time to make sure there's some dominant wayfinding signage pointing to the Pacific Street parking deck. And maybe since it's not very well utilized, making it more affordable or for our visitors, it's not utilized now. And it is an opportunity that's not being taken advantage of. And if we could take this time to address that and make it more affordable and make it more, just get more people in there, parking in there.
I've been in a few discussions, and my opinion is I'd like to waive the fees for that parking. However, connect it to all of the downtown businesses to use that parking lot. In my opinion, I know we've talked parking for probably as long as I've lived here. The business owners, business managers, and employees that park in front of their store is costing the businesses money. There are visitors that drive downtown, circle the blocks a couple times, can't find a parking, and they leave. The business employees, if they would not park in front of their store and parked, for example, in these other places, then I think that with no traffic study, in my opinion, it would open up so many parking spaces for visitors. Business 101. Businesses are constantly trying to find ways to increase their revenues, increase their profits. They market differently, different products. They go through a lot of work to try to increase their revenues. In my opinion, leaving your front door open for visitors is an easy way to increase revenue overnight. That's one person's opinion. So the other parking lot, we're talking about they offer, what is it, $20 a month?
That's right, 67 cents a day.
Yeah. If that's an issue, then my input would be that, it's such a ridiculously small amount, get rid of the fee and encourage the businesses to park there.
The employees.
I'm sorry, the employees.
Sure.
It's a wonderful idea. It would take the charge of City Hall to try to see that through and try to convince downtown businesses that that's the right thing to do. I think a study years ago, they're worth over $50,000 a year each parking space downtown. So it makes total sense and would welcome a partnership to try to get that across to everybody.
Well, we'd rather go with the honey versus the stick, right? Because I know years ago, we had somebody out there fining people for parking more than 2 hours. And then there were some businesses that were just playing the game where the employees would park there and then every 2 hours, they'd switch their cars, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's really it's simple business 101 mindset of let your customers park at your business. If employees are hesitant of walking a block or two to get to work, visitors are also, right? That's my 2 cents.
And I think that should lay on the business owners to make sure their employees know that.
It does.
I don't think that's a city thing. I think
Yeah.
you waive the fee and then the business owners say, hey, this is where I need you to park. Yeah.
If you could do that, then shame on us. We don't take advantage of it. At least the offer is there and appreciate that.
Follow up on that. Okay.
And again, I think a great time to make sure we're thinking about how to better utilize that every single day. I would say maybe 15 times a year it's filled. The other time it's very underutilized. And if we can make it so that, make it really affordable for our guests, I think it would be utilized much more.
You can't do any better than free. We're not going to pay them to park there.
I like that free, yes. Construction prep area, Michael? Okay. You guys been great. We're looking forward to getting this start on January 6th and let our spring breakers see a new West Main. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Hearing none, Todd, we will be out there watching you like a hawk.
Thank you for the opportunity to be watched like a hawk.
And there are business owners that say weather is no excuse, right? You can pour concrete at 6 degrees.
Yeah, we want to make sure it's good concrete that we're putting down and we don't have to replace it.
There you go. We're starting with excuses. Just kidding.
Thank you.
That'd be $5,200, Todd.
Todd, for you to take on such an aggressive schedule, I take my hat off to you.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure, and I really enjoy working with the city, and it's been a great project, and can't wait to bring it to the finish line.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Administrator, we have another topic that needs to come up. However, time does not warrant it. Holly, where is Holly?
Yes, Your Honor. He
You-
says he can do it in 10. He's not as verbose as me.
Okay, Kathy has great input. This is a pretty substantial conversation, and I think it deserves not only board input, but it warrants community input. So I'm going to suggest we postpone this.
We will be ready at the next meeting.
I will say briefly. Yeah, about Hiawatha? What's prompted some of this is our city, your aldermen, have stopped kicking the can down the road of all communities have aging infrastructure. So we took it upon ourselves to say, let's put it in action. Let's start fixing this. And so Kendall did a study of all our subdivisions. Hiawatha Heights was the subdivision that had the most repairs needed, or often breaks. And so we have spent the last year on engineering Hiawatha Heights subdivision. My understanding is to access all of the water meter, and what we're doing in Hiawatha Heights is we're going through and replacing all water lines and then coming back and repaving all streets. Could you just imagine that? And so we plan on doing a subdivision at a time. It's going to take a long time to get through the city, but there's no better time to start than now. What we're running against is Kendall's ready to pull the trigger and get started on Hiawatha Heights. What's been holding him up for some time, and apparently we're now at an impasse. There are 22 residents that, for their reasons, are choosing not to sign the easement to allow the city to bring the water laterals off of the main water line, to bring the laterals to the water meter. So we're not doing anything from the water meter to the house, but to put in a new line to the water meter. So I think some of this discussion will be, I hate the word in there, but it ought to draw a big crowd, condemnation, right? This board respects every single property owner's rights. There is no question about that. Condemnation flies in the face of that. So I hope, and what I believe the end of this discussion is going to be, at least for Hiawatha Heights, is I'm going to strongly support putting Kendall to work. Kendall, get started putting in all the main lines and bringing up all the laterals to the water meters for homeowners who have signed the easement. And for the owners that haven't signed the easement, my choice would be then don't replace it instead of condemnation. And I think that's going to end up being our two choices. Is that fair? Kendall, do you agree with what I just said? Yeah, come on. And I'm really short-circuiting this whole conversation.
Yeah, so one thing to add would be we would replace the water lateral to the curb line / existing right-of-way, so at least we have everything under the pavement covered for.
Yes.
The existing lines would stay the same from the curb to the meter itself. So at least we get it out of the roadway, get a good finished product. We don't have to disturb that later
Okay.
on.
Thank you. Yes.
Comment on that. Just because, I know when there's a water leak on the city side, there's, we take care of that. When it's on the owner's side, but this is a different situation in that now you're putting new line and attaching it to old line because they refuse. Would it make sense that they have to shoulder some of the responsibility financially of if something does happen from that break, from that new line to the meter kind of thing? Just a thought.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good thought, and that'll come up in our lengthy discussion. But thank you, Ralph, very much.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, with that, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn the study session.
So, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.